We're going to assemble the Gilmore Redline Racer. Let's get to it. Welcome everybody back to Gator RC. I'm Brennan and thanks for joining me for another episode. On the bench, right here in front of me from Seagull Models, this is our Gilmore Redline Racer. 74-inch ARF, almost ready to fly, so there's always a good amount of work that needs to be done. Has an engine requirement of a 33cc engine and should come in around 15 pounds. But super excited to get to this plane. Beautiful looking model so far. Let's go. All right, so our destruction manual is out, and we're going to go through. The first thing they want us to start to do is to hinge the ailerons. We have tape here around those to hold them together. The other important part of that is so that we don't mix them up. You don't want to just rip the wing surfaces out, lay them on the bench, and take them all apart, because I guarantee you're going to wind up getting stuff mixed up. And the elevator is one of these good examples. You'll see what I did here is I took tape and I marked them 2 and 2, 1 and 1, so that way I know that those have to match up. If you want to do that on all of your surfaces, that would be just fine. So we have to go ahead and hinge these in. We're going to take the tape off of here, and you want to be careful in the directions. Do not go jumping ahead of yourself because you'll get in trouble. If it says to do the ailerons, just do the ailerons for now. And the reason for that is sometimes if you think, oh, I'm just going to hinge all my surfaces now and be done with it, some of the horizontals, you need to take the elevators off, slide them into place, and then glue them on. So if you glue them in now, you're going to be stuck. And this isn't one of those models, but just be careful. So anyway, lots of different style hinges that are out there. These are fiberglass hinges. You can see right there, these things move around. They have the corners cut off on there, so that way it makes it easier to put them in. If you wanted to, now would be the time to take your heating iron and really press in all that covering, because you're not going to be able to do that later, which also includes here. So if you wanted to, you could pop these hinges out like this. And as I like to share all kinds of tips with you guys all the time throughout my builds, here's the next one. So when you go to put in hinges, there's a lot of ways to do this. I like to use these little push pins. Now these are from like the clothing aisle, if you will, the fabric aisle over in Walmart. So I take these things and I push them halfway through the hinge there like that. And I'll do a second one on the other side. The reason I do 2 is so that way you know that this thing is in straight. So you would just take this, you would push that into your slot that was pre-cut, and now I know that that hinge will stay straight, because just one, sometimes that hinge will cock like this as you glue it in. Then we get all the hinges put into place. Those little pins will actually help to give you a little bit of a hinge gap, so you want to check that deflection in both directions. Some people prefer to use crayon. They'll actually make a crayon line across there, and that will actually help to keep the CA from wicking into it and keep it flexible over time. I've really never had a flexibility issue. And the other thing I think that I like to do with these style hinges, once they're in place, I will always glue from the bottom first. So I will use my thin CA with a pipette, and I put a couple drops in on the bottom side of the wing panel first. And the reason I do that is because the hinge is fresh and it will soak up a lot of the glue. You're less likely to have it run through to the other side. Then when we flip it over, put a couple drops in on the other side. If it should happen to run through because the hinge is already soaked up with all the CA, you get runners, but it's on the bottom side of the wing panel. So we can hide it a little bit from the people at the field that go, "Oh, what'd you do there?" we always have that guy. He's around. So with that being said, we're going to get these things hinged up. Let's go. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put in our control horns into the wings. You have 2 for your elevators, 2 for your ailerons. And when you look at these, you'll see how the bottoms are all shiny like that. We're going to go ahead and use some rough grit sandpaper, and we're going to just rough those up to the flush part. So you'll see how they change color like that. And what I like to do is just go ahead, and we also are going to drill 1 hole in there is fine. If you want to do 2, you could. Just like that. So that way that horn has something to grip into the epoxy, and we're not worried about them pulling out. So let's do all the others. Now that our horns are done, we're going to go ahead and we're going to center this surface. You can use a piece of tape for this. You can just use, I'm going to use that. It's just a soft grip clamp. I'm not squeezing it. I'm just holding it so it's in a neutral position. And I rough fit that horn into place like this. Now, if you would like to make sure that you have a really nice neutral flying plane, meaning that it takes the same amount of throw inverted as upright, and that the surfaces all move the same one way as the other, it's a linear, it's important to have that hole right there on that hinge gap. So one of the things that I often use is going to be my laser, and you can run the laser literally right down that hinge line, and that will help you to make sure that your hole is on center. Now this one is just the minute hair off, so we can go ahead and adjust that wooden gap in the inside of there, so we could slide that forward, or if you have the ability, you can tilt it. But that way you know now that you're absolutely... Our epoxy is mixed up, so now we can go ahead and pop out our horn. Take some of our short-term epoxy. I like longer is better here. So if you have something that's at least an hour, I think that's best. I would not use 5-minute epoxy on control horns. You just want that stuff to soak into those fiberglass horns, and you want it to wick into the wood as well, not just kind of cure on the surface. Make sure you got that good and loaded up. Again, we're okay to have stuff come out the sides. We're going to go ahead and take this, give that horn a nice coating. Again, if you wanted to sand your horns completely, primer them and then paint them, you could do that, but then just make sure you clean it off of the bottom part. So we'll go ahead now and we'll place that in the inside of there. I like to make sure, again, using my laser, that we're set pretty close. And believe it or not, guys, it doesn't take a whole lot to get this right. Just a little wiggle or a flex, and we're right on there. Now, to make your fillets, the nicest thing to use I've found is either a straw or popsicle stick. And we're just going to run that right along the edge. And you got some nice clean fillets to work with. If you want to keep some around the front edge, you can do that. Just roll a little bit more of that epoxy in there. And I do not remove this tape a day later. I usually remove this after a couple, like this is overnight epoxy. This is slow cure epoxy. I'll remove that after a couple hours when that epoxy starts to get tacky. Okay, there you go. We're gonna get ready to start installing our servos in the wings. So the servo bay covers are usually grooved to favor one side or the other and go in line with the horns. Something I've always done that I like is I'll mark these as well, so I know A and A and B and B, so I can just take them out and work with them, and I know exactly where they go back into. You're going to have to take your heating iron and press the corners down, poke holes, and then we're going to have to drill holes in there, and we're going to wick CA into those spots. So we can do that also. So let's talk about servos for a minute. I have tried a multitude of different servos, and I've spent a lot of money on servos and I've spent little money on servos. So let me share with you a little bit about King Max servos. There's a lot of qualities to a servo that make it incredible in a piece of paper, right, and in a conversation. But then there's the value of a servo when it comes down to what a modeler really cares about in the field. Now these are the 5325s. These are high voltage digital servos. I just wanted to verify the working voltage on these. So we can go up to 7.4 on these servos. I use them in a lot of the different planes you see behind me. And for a value price servo, guys, you can't beat it. And one of the things that I really look at when it comes down to my servos is A, do they do what they're supposed to do? Longevity. 2 is noise. Even if they're set up right, a lot of servos they have such a small deadband window, they hum really bad trying to hold that surface in that area. And then we have play and gear slop. So the bigger the surface, the worse that shows up, where if you have a little bit of play in that gear train and you wind up seeing that arm move a lot, then the surface moves a lot, which leads to flutter, destruction of the gear train, and ultimately a crash. So for the weight, for the torque, for the cost, I really think you guys need to take a look at these. Put them in a model, give them a shot, and I don't think you're going to be disappointed at all with these. So inside the packaging, there's a multitude of different servos from one end to the other, but in the package you're going to get a bunch of different arms. You get your grommets, you get your little inserts, which I'll show you in a minute, the easiest way I found to put those in. And otherwise, guys, you're getting a great quality servo for a fraction of the cost. You can put in some really high dollar servos in your models, and King Max has a big window of price ranges as well for whether you want an aluminum case, cordless, brushless, whatever. But like I said, these are going to wind up being brushless. They have 300 inch-ounces of torque at that 7.4, and for this model will be amazing. So the next thing comes down to, why do I use these at 300 inch-ounces of torque? This model calls for 100 inch-ounces at 6 volts because models don't live forever, especially the ones I fly. So what I found is that I will very often reuse a lot of this gear after a crash, as long as it lives, it tests okay, and everything else, obviously. But it opens up an envelope where I far exceeded the minimum specifications, because sometimes we don't fly models at the minimum. I know that I have enough power that I'm not going to worry about stalling a servo out during a dive and a pull, something like that. And, you know, I'm not worried about what I put it in. So the couple extra bucks for a lot more torque is worth it, but I can put these in other models down the road. So if you haven't, again, links for these will be down in the description below. Go over to Gator Rc, check out their full line of King Max servos. Give them a shot. You'll be pretty happy you did. Once you have your rubber grommets installed, now it's time to put in your little bushings. Make sure the hat is on the bottom side. So I use one of these hex drill bits because it's really nice to hold on to, and that little cone at the top really helps you to hold those into place. So slide all of these things over, and especially as we get older, they're harder to see and deal with. Get all 4 of them thrown on there like that. From the back side, all we do is just take, wiggle, 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 and wiggle. There you go. Now they're all installed, ready to go in our covers. Now just go ahead and take your servo screws. I really like using these hex drivers for servo screws much better than Phillips. So you drill the hole. We're going to work those through each hole. And we'll just do the 2 on this one side. Make sure we get it to come all the way through the back. So then we know that we have threads all the way through there. And then we're just going to take our thin CA and wick it in and around that hole. That'll help to harden it up, so that way we don't have the servo screws damage that wood over time. Let's do the rest. All right, now that we have our servos installed and mounted, we've gone ahead and pressed down that covering. We've drilled the holes in the little tabs in here. And here's a mistake I'll share with you that I've made myself over the years. You have to wick in CA in there. So it's a good idea if we're going to use the same Allen head screws, or if you want to use the ones that came in the kit, you want to just do the same thing, and you want to work that hex drive screw into the holes that you just drilled. But then we have to go ahead, and that's the only thing holding in that servo. And this is just light ply, and it is susceptible to breaking, especially if you have bound up linkage or you don't have it set up right. So when you do this, we're going to have to wick in some thin CA, and here's where the mistake comes from. If you want, you could take your heating iron again and press that covering down good, so you don't have to worry about it coming loose or coming out. But here's the big thing. When you go to do this, it's very easy to drip it down into the inside and wind up ruining the wing from the inside out, especially if you use kicker. So you can use a rag for this, you can use a towel for this, all kinds of things. But go ahead and set that thing in there, and then we're just going to wick in a little bit of that thin CA around the tab. It's just so easy working upside down like this to get one drip, and if you get one drip, it causes all kinds of issues. So that is the next build tip for you guys. So we're going to let that stuff harden up, and we're going to get off to the other wing. For now, I'm just going to install these in there. I'll do all my wiring at once, because the whole build of the model may determine if I like to take the wings on or off, or where I want to do certain connectors or plugs, things like that. So we'll save that and the linkage for later. But the servos are installed, and for now the wings are done. And there you have it. That's a wrap of this section of the build assembly of the Seagull's Model Gilmore Redline, 74-inch wingspan, roughly a 15-pound airplane, running with a 33cc engine requirement. We put a 35 in ours, but all of the radio gear, the Free Sky gear, the Stinger engine, Falcon prop, King Max servos, description for all of those down in the link below. Do me a favor, if so far you found this thing helpful, useful, full of tips, obviously, smash that thumbs up button. It helps us out a lot. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, not only here on the Gator RC page, but as well as the Just Plain Crazy side. You will find those two same pages on Facebook and YouTube, as well as Instagram. Just Plain Crazy will be on TikTok as well, so if that's your format, don't forget to check us out there. We share all kinds of content all over the place just to help you guys out. So with that being said, super cool project. Can't wait to get all of the videos wrapped up for you guys. So with that being said, it's time to get out of here. I wish you happy flights. Peace out.